We're going to turn now to my exclusive interview with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's speaking out for the first time in almost a year. It comes at a time of real tension between the U.S. and Israel. President Obama is pushing Netanyahu to make progress on peace with the Palestinians, and the Prime Minister is pushing Obama to take a harder line on Iran. That country announced this morning that it has approved new nuclear sites. On that subject, I asked Netanyahu to respond to a New York Times report that Defense Secretary Robert Gates had written a secret memo questioning the effectiveness of U.S. efforts to block Iran's nuclear program.
Look, we all are concerned with Iran. I don't get into internal American calculations. It's the biggest issue facing our times, and I think that the president has expressed his understanding of how serious a challenge it is.
But is the current effort designed to get a sanctions resolution out of the UN Security Council, is that effective?
I don't know about the Security Council. I hope so, and certainly the international community can deliver crippling sanctions. Let me tell you what they are. If you stop the Iran from importing refined petroleum, that's a fancy word for gasoline, then Iran simply doesn't have refining capacity, and this regime comes to a halt.
But, Mr. Prime Minister, you know China's not willing to go along with those crippling sanctions. Last week, I spoke with Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. He made it clear that he was not willing to go along with those crippling sanctions. Then where are you left?
You're left with doing it outside the Security Council. There's a coalition of the willing, and you can have very powerful sanctions.
A majority in both houses of Congress have expressed a willingness to go along with the kind of petroleum sanctions you've outlined. But so far, President Obama has not been willing to state that publicly. Has he given you an assurance that he's willing to go for crippling sanctions?
Well, what the United States has said is that they're determined to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. And I think that's an important statement.
But it's fair to say that Israel will not permit, in your view, on your watch, Iran to get a nuclear weapon?
Our preference is that the international community, led by the United States, stop this nuclear weapons program. Having said that, I would say that, we're in the eve of Israel's Independence Day. And the fortunes of the Jewish people were such that we could never defend ourselves until we reestablished the Jewish state. We paid a horrible price in the Holocaust and before the Holocaust. And of course, the change is that there is a Jewish state now that always reserves the right to defend the Jewish nation.
But the effort on Iran is compromised by a stalemate in the peace process and a series of snubs between the U.S. and Israel. Vice President Biden surprised by new Israeli settlements on a visit to Jerusalem. Then a tense White House meeting between President Obama and Netanyahu, and the Israeli Prime Minister was a no-show at Obama's nuclear conference. It's pretty clear that the U.S.-Israel relationship has hit some hard bumps in recent weeks. Who's to blame for that?
I think with any family, with any relationship, a relationship of allies, even your relatives, you have ups and downs, you have disagreements. But I think this relationship between the United States of America and the people of Israel is rock solid.
You met with the president on March 23rd. It's an extraordinary visit to the White House, and no public pictures. The president apparently kept you waiting while he went up and had dinner and left you waiting in the Roosevelt room. And it's been reported that the president made several demands, that Israel freeze all settlements in East Jerusalem, and that Israel be prepared in these indirect peace talks to start to talk about the substance on boundaries, on Jerusalem, on refugees. Have you told the president that you're prepared to meet the demands he set out?
You have so many assumptions in that question, so let me parse them out. One, I don't know how the meeting was perceived, but I don't think there was any such intention on the part of the president. I think we have some outstanding issues. We're trying to resolve them through diplomatic channels in the best way that we can. Second, on the question of Jerusalem, we've had not my personal policy, but the policy of all governments, including Yitzhak Rabin's, Golda Meir's, Shimon Peres, for the last 42 years. Now the Palestinian demand, and I'm not saying what the American position is, but the Palestinian demand is that we prevent Jews from building in Jewish neighborhoods in Jerusalem. That is an unacceptable demand.
So it seems like you and President Obama then are still at odds on this whole issue of whether there should be a settlement freeze right now. If that's the case, how do you get these talks started again?
No, in fact, I'm the one who initiated, that's unprecedented, a settlement freeze in the territories. Again, in Jerusalem, we're talking about neighborhoods, not settlements, and they're urban areas right next to this office, in the heart of Jerusalem.
As you know, sir, a lot of those neighborhoods in East Jerusalem were empty lands. As recently as 1993, they are next to Palestinian neighborhoods, not contiguous to other settlements, which is one of the reasons why President Obama has called for a freeze. What would be your reaction then if the president decides, as he's been advised by some, to put a United States peace plan on the table?
Well, first of all, in these neighborhoods, which are part and parcel of Jerusalem and have not displaced anyone, and no Palestinians live in Palestinian neighborhoods in Jerusalem, Jews live in Jewish neighborhoods. As far as the idea of an imposed settlement, I don't believe anyone will seriously think that you can impose peace. Peace has to come from the parties sitting down with each other, resolving their differences, and this is what we want to achieve.
The Prime Minister also repeated his invitation to the Palestinians to sit down and negotiate without any preconditions.
You've heard from the White House about this?
They have not had any formal response from Prime Minister Netanyahu on the demands the president set out. But last night, Secretary of State Clinton did put out a statement trying to smooth over tensions. She said the United States will continue to stand with Israel, sharing your risk and helping shoulder your burdens.
I know you had a lengthy conversation with him, and you can see George's entire interview with Prime Minister Netanyahu at our website at abcnews.com.